Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Huncho, and this is Cases Season 1, Episode 6, the Kelvin Odunuyi case, aka Lampz, from WGM.
3 peds on the abs, looking for who? My nigga done pushed it through. No metal done touch my skin, skid skirt, trying to get through.
Hey, this no Adama Snap, Dipdat Dan GSH. Fuck Hoxton as well, yeah? A beef Hackney.
What's that bagel gang?
Kelvin Odunuyi, age 19, more known by his aliases Lampz or Dipdat, was a part of WGM, which is short for Wood Green Mob, and for you guys that didn't know, are based in Wood Green, North London. And WGM are most known for their rivalry with Tottenham-based drill rap groups OFB and MPK. Now, the case of Kelvin is a very different one. In past episodes, we've seen people who have been raised in areas which is known for high gang activity with high-profile murders and knife crime happening on a daily basis. But what's different with Lampz's case is that his family is very wealthy. His mother, Afishtu Anuru, had moved from a native country of Nigeria to the UK, but at this time, I'm unsure as to the reasons for the move. His father owns a property business out in Nigeria and paid £26,000 a year for Lampz to go to full neck private school in Pudsey, West Yorkshire. Here, he would be a boarder, and for you guys that don't know what that means, it basically means that he would have had to stay at the school. It was said that he was very gifted and was doing extremely well at private school, and his parents would go on to say that he had ambitions to work in the oil industry or to become a lawyer. So how does a boy who attends a private school all the way in Yorkshire where he had to stay end up becoming a Wood Green gang member and end up dying in a gangland turf war? So 3 years before his death, it would be around 2015, when Lampz was about 16 years old, his mother would move to Wood Green for a short period. After finishing the year off at school, he would come home to Wood Green where he had stayed for the summer. His mother believes that after mixing with the youths in this period, he was groomed into the local gang. His mother recalls that Lampz had told her that someone had stopped him and asked if he wanted to make some money, but he refused to tell her who it was, and would go on to say that the youths would go on to make threats to him if he didn't join the gang. On the BBC documentary The Met Police in London, which covers the murder of Lampz, his mother recalled that she noticed a change in him and said that Lampz didn't believe he was in a gang, rather seeing the local youths as his family, but his mother went on in the documentary to say that the people he called family were in fact Wood Green gang members. At some point after the summer, his mother had relocated to Harrow, but after this move, Lampz had started to attend Heartland High School in Wood Green. His mother would go on to tell My London that she had relocated to Harrow as she was scared for her family after living in the area for a short while, and she would go on to say that when she had moved to Harrow, she would tell him not to go back to Wood Green to see his friends, but he always used to. So after the relocation back to London, he would become more involved with gang activity and go under the alias Dipdat and Lampz. It was said that Lampz had become very active for Wood Green, with even him stabbing OFB rapper Bando K in the arm, and we would also see Lampz make taunts to Bando K via Facebook around this time. So, the case of Lampz starts with an incident that happened around 5 weeks prior to his killing. On the 3rd of February 2018, at around 1:30 AM, 22-year-old Kwabena Nelson, more known as Kobe, who was allegedly an ex-MPK gang member, had been stabbed to death behind his home on St Mary's Close in Tottenham by rival Wood Green gang members. It was heard that Kobe had changed his life around after becoming a youth worker at a local project to help people rehabilitate themselves from prison. Before Kobe was stabbed to death, a car had crashed into him on neighbouring Kemble Road, and after this, the gang had jumped out and proceeded to attack Kobe, stabbing him multiple times. Officers attended along with London's ambulance service and London's air ambulance to find Kobe with stab wounds, and he was pronounced dead unfortunately at the scene at around 3 AM. A post-mortem examination held at Haringey Mortuary on Monday 5th of February 2018 gave his cause of death as loss of blood shock, and it was reported that he had suffered 14 injuries from sharp-edged instruments. On the Met Police in London documentary, they also covered Kobe's death, and here we would see the Met Homicide and Major Crime Command, led by Detective Inspector John Meager, launch a murder investigation. And on Saturday the 3rd of February 2018, officers arrested 2 men, aged 19 and 18, and 1 teenage girl, aged 16, as part of the investigation into Kobe's murder at an address in the Haringey Borough. They were taken to a North London police station, and they were all released under investigation. Then, as seen in the documentary, on the 7th of February 2018, police would attempt to make an arrest on the suspect, but the suspect wasn't home, and they had no luck. It would then be after a 2-day manhunt and 6 days into the investigation, on the 9th of February 2018, Neron Quarte was arrested on suspicion of murder after handing himself into police. Police had made their arrest after they had found that the airbags in the vehicle had been deployed, and investigators extracted DNA evidence from the driver's side airbags where a DNA match came back for Quarte. Also, a number of knives, some of which were broken, were recovered from the nearby area, and some were later linked to the incident through DNA evidence. Quarte was then questioned by detectives but gave a no-comment interview throughout, and some of the interview highlights were shown on the documentary. It would then be on the 10th of February 2018 that Quarte would go on to be charged with the murder of Kobe. Then, on the 12th of February 2018, Quarte would go on to make his first court appearance at Highbury Magistrates Court, presumably for a plea hearing. Here, he would likely have only stated his name and address, and would state that he wasn't guilty of the charges brought against him. He would then appear at the Old Bailey on the 2nd of May 2018 via video link from HMP Belmarsh. Here, Judge Richard Marks QC said, "I'm going to adjourn the pre-trial preparation hearing until the 4th of June 2018, and at this point, a trial date was set for July 30th, 2018. So, after getting postponed due to unknown reasons, the trial would start on the 5th of August 2018. And at the first trial hearing, it was heard in court, as previously explained, that the gang had ambushed Kobe after crashing into his car on the night he was murdered. Prosecutor Simon Mayo QC said, "This case concerns the murder of a young man in a residential street in Tottenham, North London. His name was Kwabena Nelson, known as Kobe. He was 22 years of age and had been suffering from a medical condition that caused him pain in his legs and joints, and to some extent affected his mobility. Nelson was driving his Honda Civic on Kemble Road when it was involved in a collision with a black Honda Civic driven by Neron Quarte. The collision between the vehicles was not, it seems, an accident. The defendant steered into the side of Kobe's car. A group of men, including Quarte, decamped from their black Honda Civic armed with weapons. A number of them had knives. They ran to where Mr. Nelson's car had come to rest and began to attack the car, and then him," the prosecution would go on to say. They continued to attack him when he got out of the car, with Mr. Nelson being stabbed multiple times. Having inflicted injuries in Mr. Nelson, the group of men, including this defendant, fled the scene, leaving Mr. Nelson bleeding and fatally wounded. Simon Mayo QC would then go on to say that Mr. Nelson managed to call 999 and made his way to a nearby house where he had knocked on the door to ask for help. The occupants of the house called emergency services, and it was said that Kobe had managed to make one final call to his brother's partner to tell her that he had been stabbed. The prosecution would go on to say she and Nelson's brother rushed to the scene where they found him seriously injured. At that point, he was close to death. The court had then heard that Kobe had died at the scene from multiple stab wounds. Mr. Mayo added, despite the best efforts of doctors and paramedics from the helicopter emergency medical services, his life could not be saved. On that same hearing, jurors were then told that the black Honda Civic driven by Quarte had been stolen from Christine Pajak on the 24th of January 2018 in Wood Green after she dropped her car keys while shopping. So at a later court date on the 14th of August 2018, Quarte gave evidence in court where he had told the Old Bailey that he wouldn't have assaulted Kobe because he cared about him after allegedly Quarte had stuck up for him when he was being bullied at school. He would also go on to say that he drove into Kobe's car by accident and was in a daze during the attack, so he did not get out of the car until it was over. Quarte would go on to tell the court, "I had no reason to assault him. I cared about him. I wasn't involved in the murder. I felt dazed and felt unconscious for about 20 to 30 seconds. I'm not sure. Afterwards, I got out of the car and I ran away in a different direction. I was worried if the police turned up, I was going to be arrested because I'd been smoking weed." At the same hearing, 3 unnamed witnesses all told the court they saw Quarte get out of the car with the other men. One told the court that the gang launched themselves at Kobe, saying it was not in a controlled manner. It was pure violence. It was inhumane. It was animalistic. It was savage. It was all of the men who were involved in this savageness. Another man said he could hear the attackers chanting and making noises as they pummeled him as if they were at a football match. He would go on to say, "I could also hear screams and more screams from the person on the floor. Then finally the last scream was chilling and then it stopped." Mr. Mayo prosecuting would go on to ask Quarte, "Who were the other men in the car? You say that Nelson was a friend of yours, that you cared about him. So don't you think that Nelson's mother has the right to know who killed her son?" With Quarte replying, "I'm not prepared to say. I know their nicknames, but I don't know who they are." So after a 10-day trial on the 15th of August 2018, it would take jurors 8.5 hours to find Neron Quarte guilty of murdering Kobe. Judge Anne Molyneux said, "There was here, of course, a loss of life when Mr. Nelson's death was painful and tragic. His loss is something that I know will be felt keenly by his family for many years to come." And it was reported that Quarte stood at the Old Bailey wearing glasses and a suit, and he remained emotionless as the guilty verdict had been given to him. It would be a day later on the 16th of August 2018, Neron Quarte was sentenced to serve a minimum of 26 years in prison. It would be this event, the murder of Kobe, which police believe sparked the retaliation attack that would lead to Lamph's murder. In the BBC documentary, the police would go on to say that Lamph's DNA was was found in the stolen Honda, but they were unclear whether it could be linked to the day. But there was a high possibility, as the car had only been stolen 10 days prior to the killing. So, on the 8th of March 2018, almost 5 weeks after Kobe had been murdered, a shooting would take place at the Vue Cinema in Wood Green, and this is allegedly Lampz's last moments.
I got somebody, but I won't be for you if you ain't got no bodies. And nigga, you don't wanna see roll like time. Bang, 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 that's a
Sometime at midnight on the 8th of March 2018, a moped driver and pillion passenger were riding for the Vue Cinema in Wood Green. A lot of people suspect this to be MPK members retaliating for the murder of Kobe. CCTV footage shown in the BBC documentary depicts Lampz with suspected Wood Green members in the entrance of the cinema. It would be around 12:27 PM. The two people on the moped that were riding up to the cinema would mount the pavement and fire once, which would hit the door. At this point, the CCTV footage would show the group scatter, but Lampz had ran in the opposite direction. We would then see the moped circle around again, and Lampz heads for the entrance door, where it's been alleged that he backed out a knife to confront the two people on the moped. But in the matter of seconds, 2 shots would be fired, one fatally hitting Lampz in the head. The moped riders are then seen making off down Station Road on CCTV and disappear. Armed police had rushed to the scene following reports of shots being fired just after midnight. When they arrived, along with paramedics from London's ambulance service, they have found Lampz fatally injured with a gunshot injury to the head. He was rushed by paramedics to a hospital in central London, but doctors couldn't save him, and unfortunately, he died a short time later. Witnesses said friends had screamed for help as Lampz had laid dying in the entrance to the cinema. Another witness said he heard what he thought were fireworks as he left Wood Green Station. He said, "I was near the entrance to the tube station when I heard what I thought was fireworks. There weren't many people around as it was late, so there was no big reaction. I didn't see anybody running away, just people looking towards where the sound had come from. There was a guy shouting at paramedics to save him." The following day, the same team that had led the murder investigation into Kobe's death were assigned to Lampz's case. The day after, we would see the team attend the scene, and they would go on to show evidence of bullet holes going through walls and the glass of the cinema. The investigation team would go on to say that this murder inquiry was going to be extremely difficult as the moped riders had helmets on and the CCTV was a far distance away. A day later, his mother would come out and tell reporters that Lampz wasn't a part of a gang but socialised with people who were, and claimed he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then, on the night of his murder, friends gathered outside the closed cinema to lay flowers in his memory. 3 days later, on the 11th of March 2018, a 21-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of murder after an operation involving armed police had taken place at an address in Archway, North London. But he was later released under investigation pending further inquiries, and a post-mortem examination was held at Haringey Public Mortuary on Monday 12th of March 2018, and Lampz's cause of death was determined as a gunshot wound to the head. Then, a month later, on the 11th of April 2018, police would put out a fresh appeal as no more arrest had been made regarding the incident. So, in February of 2020, nearly 2 years after Lampz's death, no one has been charged with his murder. There's been a lot of online speculation about who committed the murder, but police, along with a lot of people, do believe it was MPK members that had rode out in retaliation for Kobe's death. The video Lampz had posted up moments before his death allegedly marked him for a hit as word got around of the location of himself. Then he unfortunately had passed away. And that is the Kelvin Odunuyi case, aka Lampz from WGM. And I just want to take this time out to say rest in peace to Kelvin, and my thoughts are with his family at this current time. Now, it should be noted that the tit-for-tat violence didn't stop, as later on that day, after Lampz was murdered, a gang of youths thought to be from Wood Green attacked and stabbed a student during a brawl outside Haringey Sixth Form College in Tottenham, which is believed to be in retaliation for the shooting. Then, at the end of March 2018, 3 men, allegedly MPK members, videoed an attack in the Tinseltown Diner in Farringdon, London. Here, it's claimed that the attack was on a Wood Green gang member called Bobby Slater. The attack had allegedly happened because he had dissed Kobe in a song. Then, on the 2nd of April 2018, at around 9:35 PM, Tanisha Melbourne Blake and a group of friends were chatting in the street on the edge of Northumberland Park Estate when a car had drove by slowly and opened fire, killing her, but fortunately not killing anybody else. It's believed that that killing was a revenge attack on MPK from Wood Green because of the Tinseltown attack. And it's unsure whether the violence will ever calm down between Wood Green and Tottenham, because even recently, as you guys will know, we've been following the SJ and MPK murder trial of Kamali Gabbard and Link, where they were sentenced to 116 years for their participation in his murder. But if you like this series, give the video a thumbs up, let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section below, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.